Hey, so I wanted to go over sort of my review of this game after I beat the campaign and I started doing, I guess you'd call this the mid game in Nightmare difficulty. I played the majority of the campaign on the Steam Deck. You can tell that this is not the Steam Deck. This is my gaming PC, and I guess I probably played about maybe 10% of it on this PC and the other 90% on the Steam Deck. Um, and so yeah, let's get right into it. So the positive things about this game are number one, I would say the launch. Um, I was really hesitant to pre-order this game. I don't pre-order games because of how common launch disasters are, and I definitely thought that Diablo was going to be bad, considering that Diablo 3 was one of the worst game launches of all time. But this launch, for the most part, was very, very good. I mean, it was very smooth. I never had a queue. I did the pre-order event, and that was very smooth. It was great. Congratulations to them for figuring out the launch issue, and hopefully, all games can follow suit from this because, I think that everybody was sort of pleasantly surprised about how good the launch went. I guess branching off of that, the campaign in this game might be, it's in the top three for sure of all campaign stories of all genres of games that I've played. I am not a story person. I'm not a lore person. I basically in every single aspect of every game that I play, I skip cutscenes if it's skippable. I don't know the story of World of Warcraft. I've played it for like thousands of hours. The way that they present the story in this game is so good. Like, I don't know if you're a fan of like HBO miniseries like Game of Thrones or True Detective or very, very good sort of dark exposition. This game it's like that. Nothing is cringy or sort of like anime style. It's like a Western, dramatic. It's very, very good. I don't know what to say. Like, if they continued turning this story into just like a movie that wasn't a game, I would for sure watch it. It's so good. The pacing of the campaign's awesome. Events felt really grand, like really epic boss battles. It is just great. I don't think I was, frustrated by any of the bosses or campaign things. The only thing that frustrated me, I'll get into, is some of the other stuff related to class design and gearing and whatnot. But the campaign in this game is 10 out of 10. Really good. Also, during the beta, I played the sorcerer and the necromancer, and I messed around a little bit with the druid. And I have three characters on this. This is my highest character. I have a druid and a rogue, and I think that the class diversity is great. Like, none of the classes feel the same at all. I haven't played barbarian yet, so maybe barbarian feels similar to druid. I'm not sure. I don't think it does, but every class feels meaningfully different, and there's probably something out there for everybody depending on what kind of video games you like to play. Like, I love minions, and I was really disappointed in the Diablo 3 necromancer. I thought the witch doctor was really the minion class of that game, and they probably did too, which is why they designed the necromancer the way that they did. But this feels like a real minion, pet class summoner, and it's cool. It needs a little help, but the necromancer is really, really cool. I also like that every class has sort of this special extra thing. Like, the Book of the Dead for the necromancer is the lamest of the few that I've tried. Sorcerers have some kind of like enchantment thing where they can enchant their weapon, I think. Druids have this spirit boon thing. I haven't unlocked the rogue one, but it's something similar, and they have like a bunch of different weapons. Every class has this extra thing that they added is really cool, and I hope that they can expand that and make it awesome. I like this a lot. Also, I really thought that the gear drop rate was perfect, right? I think that they nerfed it a little bit midway through the pre-order weekend. the early access weekend. I was getting a lot more legendaries, just me personally, during that weekend until about one day before launch, and it just dropped off, by at least 75%. But I'm getting a lot of sacred items. I'm getting, a good feed of legendaries. Not all of them are useful. I'm selling a lot of junk, but I really think that the way that they've done gear is top notch, and all Blizzard games are fantastic with gear. They're probably the kings of loot games, so it's really no surprise that the way that they set up gear here is really good. I'm going to skip this conversation so I can show you my gear. One of the other things that's really great is during the beta, I predicted that the legendaries were going to be lame, right? I thought that the builds were going to be stupid. It was going to be like X amount of increased attack damage, X amount of generic defense. But, for Necromancer and for Druid, definitely, the legendaries change your gameplay, right? Like this legendary with the Blizzard completely changes the entire aspect of the Summoner build. What else is really cool? This is kind of lame. This is also kind of lame. Some of them are just buffs, right? The additional minions, I guess that's okay. These are not a very good example of really cool and unique legendaries, but like the Druid has the Pulverized legendary that sends that shockwave. The Tornado heat seeks people. Really cool stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of good stuff going on with this game, and at least up to the end of the campaign and into the mid game, I think that those are some of the strengths that I've seen in this game. As for the negatives, the first thing I wanted to start out with was, what is up with the horse? Like, I think it's a loading screen issue and how the game is optimized around not showing you loading screens, but the way that this horse works is insane. Like, I'll try to show you, but like that lag right there, that was the horse. When you get on the horse, it'll just stop, and there'll be these weird lag spikes. Hopefully I can induce one here. Let's see. That was actually pretty smooth, but anybody who's played this game so far, like, man, they gotta go back to the drawing board on the horse code, because it's crazy how weird it is, the horse. The other thing I wanted to mention that was, it seems to be a common issue among these review videos that I've seen people talking about, and just people on Reddit, etc., is that Blizzard seems to really want you to have a problem with resource building. I don't know of any classes that have infinite mana, and I understand why they would want to avoid that. But man, like the mana situation, Spirit, or this is called Essence, or every class has its own resource. It's not super fun for me to play games where continually, no matter how strong you get with your character, you're always going to sort of be using your basic skill to build your mana. That's not my favorite type of gameplay, and we'll get into it later, but some of the classes, there's a huge disparity in how often you need to be pressing your basic builder skill. And on that note, one of the things that I wanted to mention was that a lot of builds, if you just look up like tier list builds or whatever, they end up dropping their basic skill. So the basic skill is, I have this Reap skill here. And, this will build Essence if I hit enemies with it. It does some other stuff, but that's essentially, throughout a lot of the campaign and the mid-game stuff, this is what you're using your basic skill for. A lot of the builds that you'll see will drop this and, add a different skill in there once you've sort of figured out resource management. So I can get resources from, I think it's called Grim Harvest. I can, eat corpses, and it gives me Essence. So I have dropped this, and I put Golem on there, which now I don't even think I know how to get it back. I don't know how to get that Golem skill back on there without my Steam Deck. I guess I'll figure that out. There's a way to bring up like a menu or something. Anyway, so yeah, people like to drop the basic skill. The problem is, I had 3 points invested into this. So let's say I want to take these 2 points off because I want to use them elsewhere. I'm no longer using Reap. You can't do that. This node right here requires 2 points before you can start using your core skills, these are called, before you can get Bone Spear. So you forever have to have your basic skill spec'd into, even if you don't use it, and you're just wasting these 2 points. And later on in the game, when you're doing the renown grind, you sort of understand how expensive it is in gameplay time and effort to get skill points in the skill tree. And I would very much like to take these and put them somewhere else. So hopefully they can revisit that. I think that this is a little bit silly. This is a very old school way to do it, and maybe they could add another keybind. I don't think they want to do that. I think they are interested in console players having a little bit more quality of life with this many skills. But I'd really like to take my basic skills for all my classes and be able to later on, once you get more mature in your build and more powerful with your mana building, get rid of these. So hopefully enough people are annoyed by that they change it. But for the time being, it is what it is. So the other thing as far as like gear and skills and stuff go is it's sort of an awkward situation with upgrades. So every build has legendary aspects or even uniques occasionally, depending on how endgame the build is, that are sort of required for you to really play your class and play the build that you want to play. That's just the way that ARPGs work. So the way that the gear system works is, let's say that I get an upgrade to my amulet and I want to switch this out. So what you can do is you can take this legendary, you pull the power out of it into an aspect, right? And then you imbue your new upgraded amulet with the aspect that you require to have. That gets, pretty expensive. And you can't just continually keep doing that every single time that you get an upgrade. You're going to run out of resources, you're going to run out of gold. It's not going to work like that. So in the mid game, especially where I am, you start getting sacred items, and in the end game, you start getting ancestral items. And you're going to want to, be full sacred in the mid game, be full ancestral in the end game. And you don't really know when you're going through it for the first time how frequently you're going to be swapping out your gear. So I sort of will like stash these sacred items that have good stats for me, like good additional stat bonuses, and I'll say, okay, well, I guess I'm going to hold on to this, right? This is 183 more armor. That's a huge amount of armor. I got these boots way early in the game, and I just think to myself, like, oh, I guess, if I don't get something better than this in, a day, I guess I'll use my resources to pull the aspect out of my old boots and put it in my new boots, or something like that. It's kind of awkward, right? Like, I don't really want to go on Google and become a professional Diablo upgrade cadence expert. Like, I don't really, how much time am I supposed to invest in understanding exactly when I'm supposed to upgrade, etc. I wish there was a little bit more of a natural intuition that they could build to give you, like, hey, this is a really good piece of gear. You're probably not going to get anything higher level than this for quite a while. You should really consider, spending resources to build this up. Or maybe if you could take a piece of gear that's kind of good, and you could, if you waste your aspect on this, you could sort of put more resources into it to get it exactly how you want, like kind of how like PoE crafting works, right? So it's a little awkward. You're sort of like holding on to these. You're hoarding sacreds and you're hoarding legendaries that you get, and you're sort of just like waiting until you feel like you're not gonna waste the resources. A lot of the advice I've seen in other videos is, oh, you can put it on your jewelry pretty consistently. So if you have like 3 aspects that you absolutely need for your build, put it on your jewelry, because you upgrade those a lot less than, say, your weapon, right? You want to be able to upgrade your weapon as soon as you get something way more powerful. So yeah, I guess that's a strategy, but it would be nice to figure something else out. Obviously, the extreme solution to that would be to uncouple legendary aspects from the gear itself. I don't think that they want to do that, but obviously that would solve this problem. Whether or not that would be a boring gearing system is another story. I don't really know. Another thing I wanted to go over is these social events, like world events. So these things will happen, and basically it's an opportunity for you to play. How do I get off my horse? oh, there's a goblin I saw, and now he's gone. Treasure goblin. But it's an opportunity for you to play with other players, right? And as you can see right now, I am not playing with other players. I am playing alone. This is, yet another example of solo content. I was a little disappointed by this. Like, occasionally, maybe 1 out of every 10 or so of these orange social event circles, I'll see 1 or 2 other players, and it's fun to play with them. You can kind of see how your build stacks up to see if it seems like somebody of your same level is doing way more damage than you. But, this is kind of lame to me. Like, I've sort of just learned to just skip these. Like, I don't even, attempt anymore to see if there are people to play with around them, which is, it's really sad, right? Like, I don't think that was their vision for how this was going to work. So hopefully, they can do something to fix that. I suspect that they are being very aggressive with sharding because they want the launch to not have a lot of network issues. So maybe that's kind of the motivation there, but as the network issues sort of ease off and you get a more stable idea of what the player population is going to be, if that is the problem, I hope that they can look into maybe somehow optimizing this for getting the most amount of players possible to do something social, because for the time being it does not feel like a world event. It feels like an orange circle that's this lame repetitive solo content, right? Like, this is not engaging gameplay. The only reason I would be interested in killing these monsters is to play with other people, and it's not happening like that. So I think a lot of the players had the same experience. Like, I go in this orange circle, there's nobody there, it's this stupid thing, it gives me this chest, and occasionally I get a legendary or something out of it, right? But most of the time I don't. Oh, there you go. Speak of the devil. So, the social aspect of this game, they wanted to put MMO mechanics into the game like this. The world bosses, the Hell Tide thing, these world events, and I think that, the world events, they need a little bit of love. Another sort of issue I ran into, specifically when trying to level up my druid, is just the enormous gap in the quality of the leveling experience between certain classes. Like, the issues that you get into with the druid are massively more than you're going to have with the necromancer or a sorcerer or a rogue. I mean, it is brutal to level in certain portions of the early game, depending on what legendaries you just happen to find, and it gets to the point where it's really just not fun. And I think that Path of Exile has this problem too with melee builds. It's sort of got this reputation that melee builds are really tough in the campaign, and it's almost worse in Diablo IV. I'm talking about the resource issue, building resources, having enough resources to cast your core skill. The druid situation is so unfun. It's just, basic skill, basic skill, basic skill, basic skill. Hopefully this tornado hits something. See, here's another social event with no people in it. So normally I'll do this. I'll run in here, see if I see a little yellow diamond of another player. If there's not, I just bounce. And I'll go to 10 of those and see 0 people. One after the other, 10 in a row, no people. Back to the discrepancies in leveling. I think that they really need to take a look at that, because I understand that druid and barbarian are beasts in the end game, but that's going to be balanced, right? They're going to look into all the other classes. They're going to balance the end game characters, and I understand that they want to balance characters around the end game. But oh, cool little statue. But they need to have a new player experience that makes people want to stick with the game, because people are just going to quit. They're going to say, this sucks. I just am pressing this one button, mashing it over and over again to build, and it's not fun. Okay, so speaking of this Lilith statue, one of the other issues is the renown grind is just not for me. Like, this whole thing, once you beat the campaign, you sort of need to do a couple things, and one of them is to get all these renown points and bonuses, specifically the first 3 you're supposed to get, so you have all the skill points. Going around and looking at an image in the other monitor of where the altars of Lilith are, and then going and finding them and clicking on them for hours, I don't know who likes that. I do not think that that's fun. And the idea of doing that every season makes me want to not play this game during the season. I know that sounds harsh, but it's they need to figure something out about this altar thing, right? And with that, the leveling from 50 onward is brutal. It drops off an absolute cliff. It's got to be like, even these Paragon points that you get, one Paragon point is way, way harder to get than it used to be to get one level between 1 and 50. Way harder. So here's another social event. No people, right? 0. And this is the experience. Like, you just never see anybody in these social events. And I just bounce. But yeah, they need to, fix the leveling. I think that those people who got to level 100 in the first weekend, they figured out some kind of group play thing that they're doing, and those people, they make a living by streaming video games, and they have 3 other people that make a living by streaming video games, and they all optimize some kind of group play content strategy, and they do some kind of degenerate, repeated content over and over and over and over and over again. I'm not going to do that. Most players are not going to do that. I'm just going to, if it takes me another week to get to level 60, I'm just going to quit the game, right? Or, I'll test out a couple other classes leveling, but I'm just not going to do that, right? Like, I'm not going to spend 4 days doing the fun campaign and then 5 or 6 times that going around and collecting stuff like I'm playing The Legend of Zelda or something. I want to play an ARPG. I don't want to play whatever this is. You could just make this a spreadsheet and you could start doing like spreadsheet calculator game. It's I don't know. Some people might find that fun. Let me know if that's what you like. But yeah, those are some of the issues that I had specifically with getting into the mid game with Diablo 4. One final thing that I wanted to talk about specifically with my class that I'm using, Necromancer, is the minion health situation, right? So there's a stat you can get on some of your gear that has minion life, and there's a couple things on the Paragon board that can make your minions a little bit beefier. I don't know specifically where they are, but there are some things that can make your minions last a little longer. But, if you just sort of get into a situation where you have a bunch of elites, like 2 or 3 elites, I feel like I'm playing the minion health game, right? Like, this spell right here, which is the active on Raise Skeleton, it will raise this priest right here, this guy shooting up the priest, and he heals my minions for 10% or 20%, something like that, percent of their health. And I'm constantly spamming that in dungeons. Like, my minions will get to 1/3 of their health, like, instantly, all the time, and I just constantly am doing this, trying to heal my minions. And I understand they don't want immortal minions, I get that, but they way over nerfed it, right? Like, it's got to be. I think that they need to double minion health or something, or double their defenses without, like, I'm talking about before gear, because the game is balanced around your minions being alive, your damage is balanced around your minions being alive, and it's you should consistently be able to keep them alive by casting this spell occasionally. Like, this buff lasts 5 or 10 seconds or 10 seconds or something, right? 5 seconds, right? I should be able to cast this every 5 seconds and have my minions stay alive, right? I shouldn't need to constantly spam this thing over and over and over and over constantly. So I think they need to fix that. And on that same line, Army of the Dead is my ultimate. It's a huge damage increase. I have a legendary specifically to increase the attack speed when I pop this. This also raises my, you can see that bottom bullet point, raises my warriors and mages, right? So this is my, hey, all of my minions just got killed by a bunch of elites, press this and it raises them all, which is very nice. However, that leads to this style of gameplay where if I'm fighting a big pack or a boss or something that I'd like to pop my offensive cooldown on, I have to sort of, hold it if my minions are taking a lot of damage and I think that they might die, I don't like that being coupled. I like the fact that both exist, that I have a raise all my minions button and I have a kill everything with a bunch of damage button. I like that. But they need to be uncoupled, right? I need to be able to smash this to do damage, and I need to also be able to raise all my minions instantly if they all die. I think that a solution would be to raise all the minions with one of the golems, like maybe choose Bone Golem or something like that, right? Whatever the least used golem is, Blizzard can use their player data to figure that out. Tie the resurrect all minions to its active and give it a long cooldown or something, 30 seconds or whatever, right? A minute. I don't care. But do that and let me smash this offensive cooldown when I want to smash it and I want to kill a bunch of stuff on the screen and it's awesome and everything explodes. And do the raise minion thing on something else, right? Like, please do that. I don't like that these are coupled. I think that is a design mistake.